The mountain in labor. A mountain was once greatly agitated. Loud groans and noises were heard, and crowds of people came from all parts to see what was the matter. While they were assembled in anxious expectation of some terrible calamity, out came a mouse. Don't make much ado about nothing. Shakespeare play title, obviously, 1600s, I believe. Um, but this was 2,000 years ago, right around Plato's time, in that vicinity of Plato's time. Um, but yeah, this could be the interpretation of the person that revised the this gentleman, George Fyler Townsend. Maybe he added some of these. So there are a bunch of these examples, Aesop's fables, a bunch on Gutenberg.org, um, and a lot of great pieces, great texts are on this website. Totally open source. I don't know if open source is the right wording, but it's just it's open. It's like a public library essentially online. As far as I know. Um, and But yeah, the mountain labor. So a mountain was once greatly agitated. Loud groans and noises were heard, and crowds of people came from all parts to see what was the matter. While they were assembled in anxious expectation of some terrible calamity, out came a mouse. Don't make much ado about nothing. Okay, so a mountain was once greatly agitated. So it's not agitated like personification, although this might be considered personification. There's not a lot of evidence that there's personification, um, unless you ascribe the loud groans and noises to the actual mountain. So yeah, I mean, if you ascribe them to the mountain, then yeah, the mountain. This is definitely personification, which is ascribing human traits to inanimate objects like mountains that aren't supposed to have feelings, um, or be able to talk, or groan, or make noises. Okay, so or make like humanesque noises, which is what it seemed like. That it's kind of responding to the agitation. Um, it also, yeah, so that it seems like personification here. It might not be, um, but it seems like it is. I mean, what else could it be? Well, let's think about it. So a mountain was once greatly agitated. Well, maybe it was just like strained. Maybe like just the rocks were strained. It was like agitated. Loud groans and noises were heard. Well, maybe the loud groans and noises were heard from um, the animals that were on the mountain. But the story doesn't make clear that there were animals on the mountain. So that's one thing that I think is particularly important to remember, and that is that you want to look at like hypothetically, and then hypotheticals A, hypothetical B. I think there's more evidence that this is actually personification. That the mountain is indeed taking on human traits, agitated, groans, noises, irritated, frustrated. Something's going on. This mountain's in pain. Okay, so crowds of people came from all parts to see what was the matter. So from like all parts, all over, all parts of the world, all parts of the land. While they were assembled in anxious expectation of some terrible calamity, some terrible event, like an earthquake or a disaster or some terrible like natural disaster or a event. Um, Out came a mouse. So, then now thinking about the mouse, you're like thinking, well, maybe the loud groans and noises was that, or maybe it is not personification. Maybe it's just, you know, it's sort of personification because the groans, like the mountain groaning, um, but it still could just be, yeah. I think there's enough evidence here. It's not a lot, but I think that there's enough to say this is personification. Uh, all right, to get back to the end of this story here, out came a mouse. Okay, so the reason why I'm saying that was because could the groans and noises been a mouse? Well, I don't think so. I think that it's pretty, since it's connected. There's no other buildup. Since it's connected to the mountain, um, talking about being agitated and directly jumping into loud groans and noises. It might have been to other animals like on the mountain or something else. It could have been the mouse. Maybe the mouse, groaned loudly and made noises. But why would a little mouse, be able to groan so loud that people from all over saw what was the matter? If it was a mountain, maybe there was a valley there and it echoed and stuff. Um, regardless, I think that if I was to create a hypothesis, I would say this is true personification. That's the way to interpret this. It's personification. This mountain is agitated. The mountain is groaning loudly and making noises, etc. So the crowds of people come out. They hear all this hullabaloo from the mountain, making crazy noises, saying, "What's going on?" And it's a mouse. So out came a mouse. They thought it was going to be an earthquake, and it was this tiny little mouse. It kind of reminds me of that story, The Princess and the Pea, with the princess sleeping on like 20 mattresses or whatever, and there was a pea at the very very bottom of the bottom mattress, and she's like, I couldn't sleep, and then they knew she was a princess because, anyways, we'll probably go over some of those as well, um, down the road in future videos. But for this one, don't make much ado about nothing. It's basically saying that, look, if there's a small little issue that's going on in your life, you know, in the grand scheme of things, you could have some awful earthquake, some awful event happening in your life that can shake you to your core, like shake you, as a mountain. Again, this really resounds. I think personification resounds because then to make that parallel to human beings, to humanity. I think it holds some water there. But yeah, like don't worry about something that's so small. And I'm sure all of us have had situations where we get upset about something that's just really trivial and really not that important in the grand scheme of things. Um, and so just working on your 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 temper and your perspective and your patience and your ability to withstand um, stress and whatnot, especially when you put things in their frame of reference. When you're putting things in their proper frame of reference, a tiny little mouse, you know, is not that, quote, literally, and not that big of a deal to a mountain that's just huge. So don't let it affect you as if it's this awful, quote unquote, calamity, some awful terrible calamity, quote unquote, as the people expected to see. So don't make much ado about nothing. A great fable, moral, and I think it's one of his best. Although it's very short, I think it's solid. The Mountain in Labor. Thank you very much. Oh, and again, I want to reiterate the mountain in labor, again, personification. So the mountain, literally, I can't believe I missed that. So like a woman goes into labor when they're having a baby. So again, that makes connections as well. Out came a mouse, as if the mountain like birthed this mouse. Um, but I don't know. It kind of makes it interesting. The mountain in labor, because it hurts to have a baby. I mean, like how am I supposed to know that? But um, obviously, like, just to make that connection, I'm trying to make the connection like in terms of the literary connection and interpretation. So the mountain in labor, I guess it's more evidence that there's personification here. If I was to write an essay, even if it was a brief essay, I would be able to write a short essay about personification with regards to this story. The mountain in labor, as if it could be the mountain in labor. It could also be in labor in terms of in like working, but he's not really working. Um, it's interesting because I don't know if it's a super clear. The through lines are super clear. It would have to just be, my argument would have to be just that there's personification evident, and that the connection that I would make would be that this personification is probably to have Aesop connect the fact that you shouldn't get upset over trivial things in comparison to other things that could be dramatic and awful, super awful. Um, that's why there's personification, to connect it with humanity, to make people remember that that we have this problem, that a lot of people have this problem, and that we all need to remember that when we're having a rough day or a rough moment or a rough episode or event, that you have to look at things in context. So yeah, the mountain in labor. Hopefully that helps. But yeah, I like this. I like this one. Again, these are really short, but I think really good lessons. Thank you very much.